Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? This time, we're all about you and how you can cultivate a more positive outlook.
Yeah, it seems like everyone's looking for that secret sauce to a happier life, right?
For sure. But before we get into the how-tos, I think it's important to understand why we even struggle with negativity in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, if positive thinking is so great, why isn't it just automatic?
That's such a good question. And I think it goes back to how our brains are wired, you
Yeah.
know? From like an evolutionary perspective, negativity bias was super useful.
Oh yeah, like our ancestors constantly scanning for danger to survive.
Right, exactly. They had to focus on threats to stay alive.
So we're basically hardwired to look for problems.
In a way, yeah. So the question is, how do we break free from that negativity bias and start embracing a more positive outlook? That's where the idea of positive thinking comes in. And the video we're looking at today does a really good job of defining it.
Okay, so fill us in. What is positive thinking, according to this video?
Well, it's not about ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect.
Oh, so it's not about just being happy all the time.
Not at all. It's more about approaching challenges with a constructive mindset.
So being realistic about the bad stuff, but still choosing to focus on solutions.
Exactly. And actually, the video talks about this idea of toxic positivity, where forcing yourself to be happy all the time can actually be harmful.
Yeah, I've seen that where people try so hard to be positive that they end up just burying their true
Yeah,
feelings.
it's like covering up a wound without actually treating it.
Makes sense. So real positivity is about acknowledging those negative emotions, processing them, and then choosing to focus on what you can control.
That's the key. And the video gives this great example to illustrate this balance. Imagine you're stuck in traffic and you're going to be late for a really important meeting.
Oh, that's the worst.
Right. But instead of thinking my whole day is ruined, a positive thinker might say, okay, I'm going to make the most of this time. I'll catch up on emails or listen to a podcast.
I love that.
Yeah,
Turning a frustrating situation into an opportunity.
totally. And that shift in perspective can make a huge difference in your stress levels.
So it's about choosing to respond instead of just reacting.
Right. Okay, but let's be real for a sec. Are there actually like proven benefits to positive thinking? Or is this just a feel-good concept?
I mean, it sounds great, but is there actual science to back it up?
Absolutely. This is where the video gets really interesting. They actually cite some impressive research from places like the Mayo Clinic.
Mayo Clinic. Okay, now we're talking. What did they find?
Well, it turns out that studies have linked positive thinking to longer lifespans.
Wait, longer lifespans? That's incredible. How does that even work?
Well, it seems like people who have a positive outlook tend to manage stress better.
Yeah.
And we all know how bad chronic stress is for our health.
Yeah, stress is a killer.
Right. And the Mayo Clinic research also found that positive thinkers are more resilient. They bounce back from setbacks more easily.
So it's not just about living longer, but living better too.
Exactly. And there's even more good news this time for your heart, literally. The American Psychological Association found that positive people were 13% less likely to develop heart disease.
So good news for our hearts. But what's the actual connection between positive thinking and physical health? It seems almost too good to be true.
Well, have you ever heard of psychoneuroimmunology?
Psychoneural what?
Ha ha ha, I know it's a mouthful. But basically, it's the study of how our thoughts and emotions impact our immune and nervous systems.
Oh, wow. So our minds and bodies are even more connected than we thought.
That's right. When we experience chronic stress or negativity, our bodies release hormones like cortisol that can really mess with our systems over time.
Oh, I've heard of cortisol. It's like the stress hormone, right?
Exactly. But when we cultivate a positive mindset, we reduce those harmful hormones and actually boost our immune function.
So we're talking about actual physical changes, not just feeling good.
Precisely. But this is really just scratching the surface of the benefits of positive thinking.
Wow. There's so much to unpack here. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about how we can actually put this into practice. What are some of the strategies the video highlights?
Well, they talk about a lot of different techniques, but one that stood out to me was gratitude journaling.
Oh, yeah, gratitude journals. I've heard of those.
Yeah.
They seem pretty simple but powerful.
They are. It's about taking just a few minutes each day to write down things you're grateful for.
Could be anything, right? Like a good meal or a supportive friend.
Exactly. Anything that brings you joy.
Okay, but how does simply writing things down actually change our mindset?
It's all about shifting your focus. When you intentionally direct your attention to the good things in your life, you're essentially training your brain to scan for the positive instead of the negative.
So it's like rewiring our brains to see the world through a more optimistic lens.
Precisely. And what's great about gratitude journaling is that anyone can do it. You don't need any special tools or anything, just a pen and paper or even the Notes app on your phone.
Love that. No fancy equipment required.
And speaking of simple but powerful techniques, the video also talks about the importance of positive self-talk.
Oh, like instead of saying, I can't handle this,
Yeah,
you say, I'm doing my best and I can handle this moment.
exactly. It's such a small shift, but it can make a world of difference.
I can see that. But what about those times when the negative thoughts just seem to take over? How do we deal with that inner critic?
That's a great question. And the video actually offers a three-step process for dealing with those negative thoughts. First, you have to become aware of when you're engaging in negative self-talk.
Okay, so notice those thoughts as they come up.
Right. Then you question the validity of those thoughts. Are they actually true, or are they based on fear or insecurity?
Oh, so put those thoughts on trial. See if they hold up under scrutiny.
Exactly. And finally, you replace those negative thoughts with more positive and realistic ones.
So it's like catching those negative thoughts red-handed, putting them on trial, and then swapping them out for something more helpful.
Love that analogy. It's about becoming more mindful of your thought patterns and consciously choosing to focus on the positive.
So it's a skill that we can develop over time with practice.
Exactly. Like any skill, it takes effort and consistency.
Okay, so we've talked about gratitude journaling and positive self-talk. Um, what other techniques does the video suggest for boosting positivity?
Well, one that I find super interesting is visualization.
Oh, yeah. Like where you imagine yourself achieving your goal.
Exactly. It's like creating a mental movie of your success.
Oh, I've heard about this. Isn't that like what people call manifesting these days?
It is. And while there's definitely a lot of hype around manifesting, it's important to understand the science behind it. Visualization isn't just some mystical thing. There's actually research from psychology today showing that it can really boost motivation and prime the brain for success.
So it's like giving your brain a sneak peek of the finish line, which makes it more likely to actually get there.
Yep.
But how does that actually work?
Well, when you vividly imagine yourself achieving a goal, your brain starts to believe it's possible. It begins to fire in ways that are similar to when you actually perform the action.
Oh, wow. So it's like a mental rehearsal.
Exactly. It strengthens those neural pathways associated with success.
Okay, so it's not just daydreaming. It's about actively training your brain to believe in your ability to achieve your goals.
Right. And the more specific and detailed your visualizations are, the more effective they'll be.
So instead of just picturing yourself being successful, imagine the specific steps you need to take to get there.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get creative with it. Engage all of your senses. What do you see, hear, feel? The more immersive the experience, the more powerful the impact on your subconscious mind.
Wow. Okay, I'm definitely going to try this. But speaking of the power of our surroundings, the video also talked about the importance of creating a positive environment for ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. The people we spend time with have a huge impact on our thoughts and emotions.
Yeah, it's like that saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Right, so choose your company wisely. Surround yourself with people who support your goals, encourage your growth, and bring out the best in you.
But what about those times when we can't choose our environment? Like at work, for example. What if we're surrounded by negative people?
That's a great point. And while you may not be able to control everyone else's behavior, you can control how you respond to it. Remember that three-step process for dealing with negative thoughts. You can apply that same process to dealing with negative people.
Well, that's interesting. So first, become aware of when someone is bringing you down. Then question whether their negativity is actually valid or if it's just their own stuff projecting outward. And finally, replace their negativity with your own positivity.
Exactly. You can choose to focus on the positive aspects of your work, surround yourself with positive affirmations, and be a source of positivity for others. Remember, energy is contagious. Even if you can't change the entire environment, you can create a positive bubble around yourself.
I love that. Create your own positivity bubble. But let's be honest, life isn't always sunshine and rainbows. Things go wrong. Setbacks happen. How can we stay positive when we're faced with challenges?
That's where resilience comes in. And the video offers a really interesting perspective on how to view setbacks. Instead of seeing them as failures, they encourage us to see them as opportunities for learning and growth.
That's easier said than done, though, right? It's natural to feel discouraged when things don't go our way.
It is, but setbacks are an inevitable part of life. It's how we choose to view them that makes all the difference. Instead of asking, why me? Ask, what can I learn from this?
So it's about shifting our perspective from seeing challenges as roadblocks to seeing them as stepping stones.
Exactly. It reminds me of that quote by Thomas Edison. I didn't fail 10,000 times. I found 10,000 ways that didn't work.
Wow, he really embraced those mistakes as part of the process.
He did. And remember, being kind to ourselves during challenging times is crucial. We all make mistakes, and setbacks don't define us. Instead of beating ourselves up, we can offer ourselves compassion and understanding.
So give yourself grace, learn from the experience, and keep moving forward. But how do we maintain that positive momentum when we're feeling discouraged?
That's where celebrating small victories comes in. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a reason to celebrate. Those small wins can add up to big changes over time.
It's like breaking down a big goal into smaller, more manageable steps. Each step becomes a win, which keeps us motivated and feeling good about the progress we're making.
Exactly. And speaking of celebrating progress, the video also touches on the importance of being mindful of the language we use, both with ourselves and with others.
Oh, I'm really interested in that idea of language shaping our reality. Tell me more.
Well, it's all about the power of words to shape our thoughts and feelings. The video emphasizes the importance of using positive language. Instead of focusing on what we don't want, they encourage us to focus on what we do want. For example, instead of saying, I don't want to be late, we can say, I want to arrive on time.
It's a subtle shift, but I can see how it can make a big difference in our mindset. When we focus on the positive, we're more likely to attract positive outcomes.
Exactly. And this applies to our communication with others as well. Words have the power to uplift or tear down, so it's important to be mindful of the impact our words have on others. The video encourages us to use our words to build people up, to offer support and encouragement.
And to remember that even small gestures of kindness can make a big difference in someone's day. It's a ripple effect. But what about when we're struggling with negative emotions? Is it okay to acknowledge them, or should we try to suppress them and focus on the positive?
That's a great question. And while the video primarily focuses on cultivating positive emotions, it does acknowledge that it's okay to have negative emotions. It's part of being human.
True. I was starting to feel like I had to be positive 24/7.
The key is to not let those negative emotions consume us. The video suggests several strategies for managing them, such as talking to a trusted friend or family member, practicing mindfulness, or engaging in activities that help us relax and de-stress.
So it's about finding healthy coping mechanisms that work for us.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that we don't have to go through challenges alone. There are always people who care about us and want to support us. Reaching out for help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
That's such an important reminder. Sometimes we get so caught up in trying to be strong and positive that we forget it's okay to ask for help. But how do we find hope when things feel really dark?
The video shares a powerful quote that really resonated with me. Even the darkest nights will end and the sun will rise. It's a reminder that no matter how difficult things may seem, there is always light at the end of the tunnel.
That's beautiful. It's a reminder that even in the midst of pain and suffering, there's always hope. But how do we tap into that hope when we're feeling lost and discouraged?
The video suggests several strategies, including practicing gratitude, focusing on our strengths, and connecting with our values.
So it's about reminding ourselves of what's good and true in our lives, even when it's hard to see.
Exactly. And it's also about remembering that we are not our circumstances. We are resilient, resourceful beings capable of overcoming challenges and creating a brighter future. Now, as we wrap up our exploration of this video, I want to highlight one final point that really stood out to me.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
The video emphasizes that positive thinking is not a destination, it's a journey. It's not about achieving some perfect state of happiness where we never experience negative emotions or setbacks. It's about cultivating a mindset that allows us to approach life's challenges with resilience, optimism, and a belief in our ability to create positive change.
So it's not about being positive all the time. It's about having the tools and strategies to navigate the ups and downs of life with grace and resilience.
Exactly. And remember, it's a practice, not a perfection. There will be days when you struggle to find the positive, and that's okay. Just keep coming back to the practices that work for you and be patient with yourself.
So it's like any skill, the more we practice, the better we get at it.
Absolutely. And the beauty of it is that even small steps can make a big difference over time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's encouraging to hear that it's a process and that we don't have to be perfect at it right away. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what are some key takeaways that our listeners can put into practice today?
Well, we've covered so much today. From gratitude journaling to reframing negative thoughts to surrounding ourselves with positive influences.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff.
But if I had to boil it down to a few key points, I'd say first, recognize that negativity bias is real. It's not your fault that your brain is wired to focus on potential threats, but you have the power to choose a different perspective.
So acknowledge that negativity, but don't let it define you.
Right. And second, remember that positive thinking is a practice, not a destination. It's about consistently making small choices throughout your day to focus on the good, to challenge those negative thoughts, and to cultivate gratitude and resilience.
Like building a muscle.
Mm.
The more we work at it, the stronger it gets. But what about those times when it feels like nothing is working, when we're just stuck in a rut of negativity?
That's where self-compassion comes in. Be kind to yourself. It's okay to have bad days. It's okay to struggle. Don't beat yourself up for not being perfectly positive all the time.
Yeah, we're often our own worst critics. It's a good reminder to extend the same grace to ourselves that we would offer to a friend.
Exactly. And finally, remember that you don't have to do this alone. Surround yourself with positive people who support your growth and encourage your journey. And don't be afraid to reach out for help when you need it.
It's okay to ask for support.
Yeah.
In fact, it's a sign of strength. But now that we've explored all these techniques for cultivating positivity, I want to ask you, what's one small state our listeners can take today to incorporate this into their lives?
I think the best place to start is with awareness. Just pay attention to your thoughts. Notice when you're engaging in negative self-talk, and then gently challenge those thoughts. Ask yourself if they're really true or if there's another way to look at the situation.
So start by becoming more mindful of our inner dialogue, and then choose to reframe those negative thoughts into something more positive and empowering.
Exactly. And remember, it doesn't have to be a huge shift. Even a small change in your thinking can make a big difference over time.
It's encouraging to hear that it's not about overhauling our entire lives, but just making small, consistent choices. Well, this has been such a fascinating deep dive into the power of positive thinking. I feel like I've learned so much.
I'm so glad. And remember, this is just the beginning. Keep exploring, keep practicing, and most importantly, be kind to yourself along the way.
Great advice. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. And to our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive and feel inspired to embrace the power of positive thinking in your own lives. Keep those positive vibes flowing, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.